WMAL. I swear to you, the pro-abortion people before the United States House of Representatives, as far as I can tell, they were not paid actresses. No, these were authentic people who had never once thought through their positions. Here they are. Here's Congressman Mike Johnson asking questions yesterday of a woman called Amy Arambide. Take a listen.
Let me ask the abortion advocate, Ms. Arambide, to answer my questions on this subject. Ma'am, you testified that you are, quote, unapologetic in seeking unrestricted abortion access. So I'm wondering, at what point is it not okay to abort a child? What age of gestation?
She has to think about it.
I trust all people to determine what they can and can't do with their bodies. Full stop.
Okay.
I also believe that human rights, including access to the medical care that they need within their communities, is something that should be afforded everyone.
Great. Okay, so you support late-term abortion?
I support all people and trust
That means
people.
late-term abortion. Do you support partial birth abortion? In other words, the child is half delivered, and then the woman says, my right, I want to take that one out. You support that?
I trust people to make decisions about their body.
Wow. Okay. What about so abortion should be allowed then, by your definition, for any reason, for any purpose, at any stage, right?
I trust people to make decisions about their body, and then when relevant, I think that they need to consult their medical practitioners.
Okay.
And not
if it is,
Congress.
listen, let me just ask you this question. If it is not lawful and morally acceptable to take the life of a 10-year-old child, I assume you agree with that, right? That would be wrong, correct?
She hesitates.
I believe that.
Okay. And a 2-year-old child, same thing. That would be murder. We would all agree that's wrong. Then what is the principal distinction between the human being that is 2 years old or 9 months old or 1 week old or an hour old than one that is 8 inches further up the birth canal in the utero? What's the difference? Why is it okay in the latter case and not the former cases?
I trust people to determine what to do with their own bodies.
Wow.
Full stop.
Wow. Full stop indeed.
Full stop indeed. Congressman Mike Johnson joins us now on the Vince Coglianese Show. Congressman, great to have you with us.
Hey, Vince, great to be with you. That was a surreal day in judiciary.
That's tedious to just, you ask like a range of questions and you just keep getting the same answer. I was actually stunned that Democrats chose the pro-abortion people who were in the hearing, correct?
Yes, those are their most prominent expert witnesses. We had an abortion provider, a doctor there. We had that lady that you just heard from. She runs a big pro-abortion group in Texas, advocacy and provide services. And then they had a pro-abortion professor who appeared by video. Those are the top 3 advocates and voices that they could find. And their argument is completely, obviously, morally bankrupt. But it was surprising to me that they didn't have better answers that they had thought through to come and appear before us. It was really shocking.
Right. No, she was answering the question as if she was like a Miss Teen USA pageant person who was asked like some sort of political question, and she tried to dance her way through it. She had no idea what she was talking about. Honestly, my jaw hit the floor because I'm thinking I would think you would have the spin prepared, like you had taken an inventory of your ideas, you had tested them against criticisms, but none of that apparently had occurred. And actually, in a way, it's a blessing, Congressman, because it demonstrates sort of the absurdity of the pro-abortion position, especially these extreme positions of, partial birth abortion is totally fine. The American public's against that, Congressman, and for good reason. I think it was laid out in your questioning yesterday.
Well, thank you. It was, and that was the intent of what we were trying to do, of course. And the position that was there was even more shocking. I asked her, how do you define humanity? What makes someone fully human? And her answer to me, now she's a medical doctor. She's on the national board of all these pro-abortion groups. She said, you become a human when you take your first breath, when you're born. So the unborn child is not a human to these people. And it describes exactly where they're coming from. They don't recognize the humanity of a child in the womb. And we know, and we pointed out in the hearing, of course, look, babies in the womb deserve legal protection. They possess the same basic human right to life that is described in our Declaration and that all the rest of us enjoy. And, we pointed out, look, at unborn children at 6 weeks have a heartbeat. By 15 weeks gestation, they have fully formed noses, lips, and eyebrows, and they can suck their thumb and feel pain. I mean, this is a child but they will not acknowledge it.
Well, if the abortionist who you had testifying before your committee is so comfortable with the procedure and doesn't think it's a big deal, why did she get so defensive yesterday when Congressman Chip Roy was asking her about what they do with the parts of the babies that they remove from the mothers? Because she's all of a sudden she just started saying, you're using inflammatory language and and basically you people don't understand this. Like, why so defensive if it's just a common medical procedure?
That's a great question, isn't it? They do not want people to face the reality of what they do every day. And, I know you've got a mixed audience, and we don't want to be too graphic, but, I mean, the procedure itself it's gruesome, it's barbaric. And, there are baby body parts, right, that they deal with. And they refer to it as medical waste, and they discard it like the trash, out of your kitchen trash can. I used to, before I got to Congressman, I was a religious liberty litigator for 20 years, and I defended a lot of pro-life cases, statutes when they were challenged in the courts. We did a lot of discovery on these abortion clinics. They are gruesome places. And we had many bits of evidence from around the country of these clinics that they just discard the babies, that after they dismember them, they put them in trash bags and literally throw them in a dumpster behind their facilities. I mean, this goes on every day across America, and it's staggering. And nearly 65 million children have been lost since Roe in 1973. It is way past time to right this wrong.
I noticed that Congressman Burgess Owens also raised a point yesterday that bears repeating, which is he said, quote, 40% of my race, before they're given a chance to bless our nation with their innate talents, are exterminated. He said, for those who love the concept of equity and everything under the sun, including test score outcomes, when it comes to the death of the unborn, the abortion equity seems pretty racist to me. How are the witnesses responding to that basic fact that so many black people are killed in this barbaric practice?
It is truly an American Holocaust, and Burgess did such a great job. He articulated that so well, and their response is to try to ignore it. I mean, the reality is that Planned Parenthood and all these big abortion, they set up their clinics in inner cities. They are, they regard these people as easy prey. I mean, it's true. This is what's happening across the country now, and that's why it so adversely affects one race over others. And it's my dear friend Alveda King, niece of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., is one of the great spokesmen on this issue.
Yes. And
they just go right to it and talk about the reality, and it's a very, very difficult and tragic thing to face.
It's amazing. It was not that long ago. I think it was a week ago. You had the Treasury Secretary, Janet Yellen, who was before the Senate and talking about this issue. And Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina was taken aback by just how casually and how callously she was talking about aborting black children. In fact, she made it seem like it's a big economic benefit. She said that this is great for the economy and that all these babies are being aborted. Of course, not the language she was using, but she said that's an economic stimulant. Now, let's for a moment remove the emotional and obviously human rights element of all of this. That's not even true. The economic argument is false. Like, having babies means more economic productivity. That's what humans generate GDP. Yet she's arguing, well, it's great for the economy if these babies are aborted, especially these black babies. And that's when Senator Tim Scott stood up and said, wait a second. No. Yeah. I was raised in abject poverty by a single mother, and now I'm a United States Senator, and I am very grateful that I have the life that I have.
Absolutely. That was just sickening to hear Janet Yellen say those things. They're so callous to this. It is a barbaric thing. You have to remember, our policy in the United States is a global outlier on abortion. We're one of just 7 nations on the planet, including China and North Korea, that allow for abortion on demand beyond the point that babies feel pain. You've got 47 out of 50 of the European nations that limit abortion after 15 weeks or even earlier. So we are far out of step with the rest of the world, and part of the reason for that is because medical technology has caught up. It's very different than it was in 1973. And Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House, said 2 days ago that there has been no advancement in that science since 1973. What a joke. I mean, it's hard to even take these people seriously.
A complete joke.
But now we have 4D ultrasounds. Everybody can see that this is a child, and they refuse to face the reality.
What has happened to Democrats? I know all this conversation in the media is like, oh, Republicans are moving to the right. Like, what are you nuts? Like that's first of all, that's not even close to true. And of course, as always, it's the opposite. It's this gaslighting that's going on. The left has moved way to the left on this issue of abortion, especially among leadership. Among Democrats in Congress, Do you find people who do think that that's a good argument? Like, hey, wait a second, why do we have the same abortion policies as North Korea? Maybe we should back off just a little bit.
There are just a handful of moderates left on the Democrat side, because the progressives and the radical left have run all of those reasonable people off. And so it's a dwindling number of them. But I'm going to tell you, the abortion lobby is very powerful. They raise and give a lot of money to candidates for Congress, and their friends there, their allies in Congress, will do their bidding. And so they support abortion for any reason up until the moment of birth. And you heard a little sampling of that in our hearing yesterday. This is a fact. And I'll tell you, the vast majority of the people in this country are not with them on that. They support protections for the unborn. I mean, it is the data and the polling shows 80% of Americans reject abortion after the first 3 months of pregnancy. And again, part of the reason for this is that people can see with their own two eyes. They see an ultrasound. They understand. When an abortion-minded woman goes to one of these crisis pregnancy centers and they show her unborn child on the monitor, she has an 82% chance of changing her mind and having the child, because they are made to face reality. But you know what, Vince, I wish we could make our colleagues in Congress face the same reality, but they won't. Well,
no, Democrats, unfortunately, are very disconnected from reality. If you need more evidence of that, look no further than their witness yesterday. I already played you some audio from her. I'm going to play a little bit more here. Here's Congressman Dan Bishop asking the woman Amy Arambide, she's an abortion enthusiast, whether or not men can become pregnant. This is a softball question to answer, and yet listen to how she whiffs.
What do you say a woman is?
I believe that everyone can identify for themselves.
Okay. Do you believe then that men can become pregnant and have abortions?
Yes.
What? I mean, how can you even begin to have a reasonable debate if that's the starting point?
It would be comical if it were not so deadly serious. And I mean that literally. These are the people, to put it bluntly, that are taking the lives of unborn children every day at massive rates. And we actually believe that 65 million, nearly 65 million, that's the number that's tossed around. I actually believe that is a low estimate, Vince, because when I used to work in this field and we did pro-life litigation, there are a number of states that don't even require adequate reporting. California is one of them. Of course, there's many abortions that are done in California every year, but they don't report complications, and they're not required under state law to keep accurate records. And so many of us believe that number is actually much lower than what it truly is. We may never know this side of heaven, but it is a tragedy, and it needs to come to an end.
Yeah, big time. Lastly, are there Democrats who are still fighting to prevent taxpayer money from being spent on abortion? So maybe you support abortion, but you're going to really tell somebody who doesn't support abortion, who thinks that this is a total atrocity, that they need to spend their tax dollars on aborting other people's children? Like, does anyone support the Hyde Amendment anymore on the left?
Well, I'll tell you, it has been a number one agenda item of the Schumer, Pelosi Democrats, the leaders of both houses of Congress in this term. They have tried to take out the Hyde Amendment protections in all federal spending bills. President Biden, of course, has led that charge. And so the Democrats are following along like lemmings with that agenda, and it is frightening. We have been able to ensure that a cent of taxpayer dollars goes to support abortion services, but that's not their agenda, and they want to change that. So we have to fight tooth and nail every single day. You hate to say this is a partisan issue, but it is. The Republican Party right now stands for the sanctity of life, and the Democrat Party stands for abortion on demand all the way up to the moment of birth. That is where we are, stark as it is. That's the reality.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but there's a very clear dividing line between the two parties on this. Congressman Mike Johnson from Louisiana, thank you for both putting up with that hearing yesterday and for relaying it to us today.
Thank you, my friend. You're an important voice. Keep it up.
Thanks, sir.